The next topic is going to be AVOD, SVOD, and the future of OTT advertising. We all consume OTT content as consumers, of course, but what the scope of OTT advertising is and how to go about it is what will be covered in this discussion. And the session is going to be chaired by Shekhar Banerjee, Chief Client Officer and Head, North and East, Wavemaker India. The panelists include Pooja Sehgal, Chief Marketing Officer, Park Avenue; Sanchita Roy, Head of Strategy, Havas Media Group India; Siddhartha Roy, Chief Executive Officer, Hungama; and Rakesh C.K., Head SVOD and Business Strategy, AHA Media.
Thank you so much for joining this panel, and we are pretty excited to actually talk about this topic, especially given the way the landscape in India is changing. It is becoming very, very complex. Not just the choices in the market are changing from the consumer lens, but also this is a time when a lot of advertisers are also very confused how to make choices, because there are too many choices, to be honest. So before I actually start throwing the questions to the panel, if I just set a bit of a context here, India is a fairly large country, 1.4 billion. Of that, roughly, it is the only country where TV is still growing. Roughly around, you talk about 900 million TV consumers. Within that, if you see smartphone users, roughly around 650 to 700, depending on whichever report you read. That will be the range in that. Within that, take for a moment social, which is a big place, roughly around, again, 400 to 450 million users. Then there is short form video, which has exploded in recent time, roughly around 200 million users there also. Then there's the video platforms, which often interchangeably is called OTT. Within that, there's one big guy as YouTube, which is roughly around 450 million. And then there are this very cost-intensive, heavy-duty, who are working with the OTT players who are basically licensing or building their own original content, ranging between 50 million to 120 million, depending on the platform and the market where they play. And that's the choice which is there for consumers, at the same time for customers like marketers, agencies to make choices from. I personally actually work with a lot of our clients like Netflix, L'Oreal, Mondelez, Dream11, Vodafone Idea. And it's very interesting how they have very distinct way of using these platforms, from almost full funnel, means whether it is building reach to actually execution, bottom funnel, customer acquisition, everywhere. So that's broadly, if you look at it from the context, becomes very interesting for me to have this range of people. We have the customers here, we have the sellers also here, and the content producers at the same time, if I may call all of them. So so with that, let me actually ask the first question. Pooja, we have worked together for a fairly long time, and being a marketer, you have so many choices today for the brands to make from. So how do you go about making choices, especially given that there are you can reach to the consumer by multiple ways. And how do you decide whether there should be an OTT in the plan, or should it be there or not also? There's a mic there, or I can give you mine.
Hi. Yes, Shekhar, we worked a lot together, and thanks a lot for the Media 101 before we start. So I think basically, because I'm from FMCG and it's still a very old industry, I think the fundamentals of marketing have not changed, and that key fundamental which we all learn is the consumer central. And I think, partnering with you and all the media agencies across, you really now today get a lot of, learning from the consumer perspective. And what are the shifts the consumer is really making? So all the media data that we have, where is the consumer spending time? What is she really engaging with? What is she really, spending time on, and basically spreading it out? And then, of course, now we have this great matrix called ROI. So keeping the consumer completely the center, keeping your financial metrics right at the, as the goalpost also, I think working very closely with a lot of media agencies, partnering with them to get this rich consumer data, and really see that across the funnel, what are our key objectives to do. So very often you have to continuously build the brand. So I'm still a big believer in building top of the funnel. So really using a lot of television, but now I think greatly OTT has really added. So I worked with Shaker and Marico in L'Oreal across a lot of premium brands. So using OTT, and the growing need of OTT, I've really seen it because first we were like using it 4 to 5%, and now I think even on Park Avenue, during the launch, we almost used 20% in OTT during, using Hotstar, etc. So I think, adapting to the changing needs of the consumer and really seeing how they're evolving is something that, we are basically going towards. And of course, at the end of the funnel, there was always this belief that video did not really aid conversions. But I think now I'm really also seeing video, aiding a lot of conversions, having that link to e-commerce. So I think OTT is helping us from top of the funnel to the end of the funnel. So it's really a win-win for all of us. So yeah, I think it's making our choices more complex and varied, but also getting us to be more focused and meaningful.
Fantastic. I have another customer, the agency, who actually has the tough job of making choices on an everyday basis. So it's a question to you actually that means, what are the reasons when you're actually building a plan, what are the reasons you actually include OTT, especially knowing that, like the way I try to set the context and the complexity, you may be able to reach the same consumer in different ways. Still, we are seeing the usage of OTT going up. So what are the reasons you actually go?
See, I think what has really changed in the last 2 years is the way consumers are today consuming media. I think, when the lockdown happened and we were put into a situation, there was no original content happening on TV. So for a lot of consumers, you would turn to the OTT platforms to actually get our daily dose of entertainment. And I think today, we've increasingly seeing that, linear TV, there is a drop that is happening. And because of, increased smartphone penetration, because of, subscription costs coming down, the adoption of OTT as a platform, is only going up. And today, I think somewhere it complements, whatever it is that you're doing on TV to actually build your top of the funnel metrics. It's not, I mean, earlier there was a time when digital was restricted to driving lower funnel conversions. But I think today, digital does both building upper funnel metrics as well as driving conversions. And we've seen the adoption that has happened, amongst consumers. And especially, the pandemic only accelerated the digital adoption in the country in the last 2-3 years. And I think that is also getting reflected in the numbers that we see. I mean, today we have some 40+ OTT players in the market. So that's a huge market that we see. And it's only going to increasingly, become bigger and better maybe. And with measurement coming in place, I think somewhere, it'll easy to track also, understand, what the ROI is, what the deliverables are, and therefore it's easy to plan.
Very interesting, but still, it's a difficult choice if you're talking about 40. So, means 40 to you, 40 to both of you, means how? And then there will be hundreds of TV channels. There will be YouTubes, Facebook, Google. How you actually still?
But Shekhar, something, I think what Pooja rightly said, that today we have to, media planning only has changed. We have to put the consumer, see what the consumer is doing. Today, if you ask anyone, how many of us in this room actually go and watch TV? We're doing everything on our mobile phone. We are watching content on our mobile phone. And yet we go back and say, no, we need to still. Of course you need TV. There's no denying that in India. Like, it's still the biggest reach driver. But then there is merit today in planning for OTT because it is driving both, it'll give you both reach as well as conversions.
Fantastic. Let me change a bit of a gear, and obviously I'll go to you, Rakesh, first. First of all, you're winning in local. You're winning amazingly in local languages.
Yeah.
And especially, first, congratulations and thanks for opening up that world to the entire nation.
Thank you.
The thing is, what I wanted to know, because there's a product homegrown, built in India. So what are the unlocks you are bringing in, which is very unique to the platform, which is helping you actually let the marketers win, at the same time getting more consumers on the platform.
Sure. I mean, Sanchita spoke a little earlier about how the OTT space. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So you spoke a little earlier about how the OTT space has become extremely crowded, and it becomes that much more difficult to find a niche for yourself, right? And when we started our journey 2 years back, I think the niche that we defined for ourselves was to be in the space of regional, and we took cues from television. 50% of the audience today on television is essentially taking and consuming regional content. And we now look at OTT, 35% of the consumption is also for regional languages outside of Hindi, right? So there is a clear space that we saw in the regional space, and down south with all the great things happening with movies and the movies going national, a lot of blockbusters coming out of south, it just accelerated the growth we saw in that space. So we were able to define that space for ourselves. We said Telugu is homegrown, is something that we are very native. In the regional space, how do we make sure that there is an audience who's willing to pay to watch quality content? How do we bring that content to fore? And that's where we established ourselves, and it's been a fabulous journey over the last 2 years. 2 years, 2.5 million is where we landed. We forayed into Tamil now. So yeah, it's an exciting space. I think it's a space that was waiting to be occupied, and we were first there. And that has given us a unique advantage, especially in the Telugu landscape. Tamil has just started, so Tamil as it builds, but Telugu landscape, I think we are fairly established as a player to reckon with.
Yeah, and to add to it, they were the fastest growing language on digital for a
Yes.
very long time. So
Yes.
fabulous space to actually enter from
Yes.
and region to enter from. Siddharth, I have a very different question from you. And I can only ask you because of the years that you have been in this business and seen so many things unfolding in the country. While the OTT space is so crowded, we are talking about it.
Actually, it's not crowded.
Very good.
So let me actually do the other hypothesis to this.
Yes.
But you asked me the question.
Fabulous. Actually, it makes it more simple. But the complexity-wise, if I just add in, suddenly there is a infusion of lot of platforms who are trying to behave like super apps on OTT. For example, Tata Play Binge or Jio or many other telco apps who are trying to aggregate everything under one. In that kind of a space, there's a new evolution which is happening. Obviously, there are standalone ones, and then there's who are trying to be the super app. How does the business model evolve from here, from being a, whether it is SVOD side or AVOD side, and more so actually, I'll be personally very keen to know AVOD side, because everybody will actually say that I have the data, I have the consumer, I can target.
So let me break this. I think it's a very interesting question. So two core fundamentals when we start talking this journey. The fact that 10 gig of data is being consumed at an average, all people sitting here and India. So when you put 650 million people, average consumption is 10 gigabytes. And 5G is just about coming. And 5G, there is no use case except more video. So that core fundamental is established. The second big thing is that we're a large content creating country because we are technically mini Europe. Today, when you look at television, India is a unique market where we have 1,200 television channels. Because of digitization, some of this would have come down, but it would still be closer to 800, of which 400 would be news channels that we have in various languages. Now, that is where I believe the journeys have started. So what you're seeing is the advent of the fact that what Sanchita was saying, that there are 40 OTT players, and I believe a lot more to come, because in India, the beauty of our content market is that if you are going after a 20, 30 million consumer base on a base of 1.4 billion, and you go out, get a couple of million users who start using your service, and content creation is local, it's a sustainable business. Okay? It's not about the fact that you're going to be putting in very high burn CAC to be able to, because in our business, there are 3 core costs. The cost of acquisition of customer, the cost of the OPEX that we run, which is massive because of the bandwidth consumption, and third is the cost of content. Those are 3 value sets. Now, specifically, when you talk about the super app opportunity, okay, China is a market which has shown the advent and the success of super apps a la Alibaba, Tencent, Kwai Show, all of of which content and social was the core mainstay. If you look at what our telecom networks doing, they've learned it from the West. You can be a dumb pipe, or you can be a pipe where you can create more value-added services, revenues for yourself, because you have the consumer trust of wallet. So in my belief, it's going to be all about what kind of efficiencies that we put the customer in the middle. What are the kind of efficiencies each of us on an independent manner or through an aggregated manner bring to the table. So in this, very clearly, consumer is going to be genuinely king. They are going to get products and services which could come in an aggregated manner, or they may specifically choose. In our case as Hangama, if you see, we are on the video side, on music we are truly singularly independent with 65, 70 million users. But when it comes to video, we've used the bespoke because we saw the opportunity that you could be independent, but on a bespoke structure, if you can get aggregated into super apps, you will generate usage and you will generate consumption, and there will be a value proposition that the platform and the service will have. So I believe it's early days. You're going to see a lot more of this and a lot more experiences coming in. But for the brands, it's a great place to be in because India is truly getting video. And that to me is where brand engagement, stories, all of that can be told.
Thanks, Siddharth, for sharing this. The way the OTT is evolving, the user experience was fairly good on the mobile screen itself, and you're watching it there. And it's been fabulous till now, the journey. Now, suddenly, we are seeing increasing habit change of people casting it or using it through the connected TV, addressable TV. Roughly, again, multiple reports in the market. Our estimate as Group MV somewhere clock roughly around 20 million as a stable connected TV households which are addressable, and households, not individual numbers. That's where we are seeing this. And honestly, this can be the game changer for OTT because suddenly you're on a big screen, experiences changes, you're replacing cable TV, and it might be likely to be one of the biggest drivers for OTT adoption also in the country, as 90% of all TVs sold in the country are now smart TVs. It's just about consumer getting to know about it. How do you see that space? And again, a complex question of SVOD versus AVOD, how do you monetize it? So Rakesh, maybe.
So on the connected TV front, we've seen two things happen, right? When the entire COVID situation happened, the premium paying audience, we saw that shift happen almost immediately, and it was probably happening a little earlier. COVID just hastened it. So we see that that audience has already moved, and television probably isn't your go-to source of entertainment for them, and they are also using connected TVs to watch and consume entertainment on large screens. The next inflection point, I believe, is when this will also translate into smaller markets, and the smaller markets are the next growth drivers. From the regional landscape, from where we see it, we have been able to capture, say, metro markets. We have good, fair penetration there. The next growth story for us clearly lies in the tier 2, tier 3 opportunity. And Siddharth spoke about 5G coming to 4. And that takes care of one major drawback that you have on the connected TV front, which is connectivity to the television itself, the availability of internet. And moment you have 5G, giving you bandwidths of 150 Mbps and so on and so forth, that will also come about. So yeah, I mean, the next growth drivers, televisions will be a big part of it, and 5G will bring that evolution forward.
Without doubt. Actually, if you ask me, the single biggest beneficiary of 5G is the TV. The last mile completely. Today, everyone is fighting for the last mile. Even if the consumer has the money to pay, he can't get the quality of last mile. 5G fundamentally changes that equation where technically every household, if you have 5G, and it'll be literally like there will be a small box that you'll come and you can literally hang it in your house, and your entire house is 5G enabled for high-speed data. And biggest beneficiary is going to be video, which means televisions and IoT, which is going to be connected devices.
Okay. I'm going to definitely come back to the 5G because I have a hypothesis on this, and I want to bounce off your thoughts on this one. But because the question was also about SVOD and AVOD choices, any thoughts, Siddharth, on that?
So the logic is, its core fundamentals comes from the advertising world, okay? Today, the amount of supply of content, AVOD supply we are generating, margins are fundamentally under pressure, okay? So when we, at least when we look at data and when we look at advertising dollars to the amount of inventory that is there, inventory margins will always be under pressure. That change will happen as GDP increases and the fact there's more dollars that Pooja starts spending on us, okay? That is when the core margin differential will play. Today, when I look at advertising, Bollywood Hangama Classic, okay, I make serious money outside of India. Outside of India. The same video that I get people to consume over AVOD in India, to just give you a percentage analogy, okay, I would make roughly 17, 18x more for the same video on programmatic run of site outside of India than in India.
Because of the pricing.
Because of so it's not about supply. Consumers are consuming all our content. Yes. The question is there enough marketing dollars for us to be ROI positive on that stream? Yeah. That currently is still challenging. It's challenging even in audio. We run large audio businesses. Audio also is going through the same set of challenges. We are part of the radio audio business, but it's the same set of challenges today. This will change over time. There's no doubt about this. And the broadcast money is which way is starting to shift our way.
Lovely. Pooja, what's your thought on AVOD and SVOD?
So I think that, you know, it's quite interesting because YouTube, which was AVOD, is now becoming subscribe-based, and so is MX Player. And a lot of people like Hotstar and all are definitely going to you know, advertising, video on demand. So I think it's quite beneficial for us also because, like you said, you know, it gives you a great programmatic way to really target the consumer in a way that linear TV does not really. And it also gives you a lot of rich data, which we can also feed back into content producers to say, hey, you know, this is what is really working for us. So it's a win-win for all. And I think now, hopefully, luckily, the rates are still pretty good. But as there is more demand, I'm sure your ROI will also increase. As you also said, most of the consumers are shifting to more premiumization content, are more, you know, time-bound. So they want to make sure that they are able to watch what they're really interested in. And therefore, I think it's a win-win for both. So seeing the content that interests me, making sure that programmatically I can buy it on your platform, get the data back, and then again use it for retargeting, is a far more richer experience than television. And I was completely a big believer in television. But I think Wavemaker and just seeing the big aspects of digital and data has really converted me to, you know, video on different opportunities and options, including YouTube and all the other OTT platforms.
Sanchita, I'm not going to keep it that simple as SVOD or AVOD. I'm going to add a complexity of pricing. OTTs are, as a platform, pricing versus certain efficiencies that other platform brings in. Given that kind of a choice, how do you actually go about it?
See, right now, I think, you know, it's an underutilized platform, you know, as Pooja said, as Siddharth has been saying, you know, with more, because there is a cost of it. There's a tech cost, there are cost for getting those content. I mean, recently the amount that House of Dragons and Lord of the Rings, the amount they've spent to create content, God only knows when they will, you know, kind of break even. So there's a huge cost to content. And somehow I feel, you know, today, you know, we've really not utilized the way we should be utilizing OTT players. I think as planners, you know, people who's grown up, you know, planning on TV, I think it's easy always to plan on TV and say, ki, you know, TV is going to do the job. But I think somewhere, you know, for everything, I feel that, you know, we need to start understanding where is the shift happening, what are my consumers doing? Because finally, whatever you're doing it to get that eyeball, you're going to get that, you know, consumer into your fold. So therefore, you know, currently, yes, I think what it also does from a pricing is, I wouldn't say, that, whether we are paying the right price or not, but yes, there is a lot of scope for rationalization of pricing to happen, which probably is not the case currently. And with the way things are evolving, I mean, today you have, Netflix, which was always an SVOD platform, is talking of, doing AVOD also. Today you have AVOD, people who are AVOD, they are also thinking of MX, has also launched its own subscription models. So I think it's a balance that everyone's trying to, find. And what is the right balance is something that only time will tell, and maybe experiments and what's working, what's not working is going to tell us in the future. But yeah, I think this platform gives a lot of opportunity, and therefore also from a pricing perspective, we have to understand that there is a cost to content, and consumers come to the platform not because of, whether you are MX or whether you are Netflix or whether you're Amazon Prime. They come to it for content, right? So, and there is a cost to it. So I think somewhere that rationalization needs to happen, which I feel has still not happened the way it should have happened.
Now let me actually come back to the point you talked about 5G. It's absolutely true. Means the biggest consumer-led use case today in the market is likely to be video, because I don't think so we are working so extensively in India right now to actually deliver IoT experiences which will be so differential that people will start using it. Maybe gaming is another one which is with low latency gaming experience will completely change in future. So these are the two big use cases will emerge. But the catch is that whatever the initial tests on 5G which are showing is that the natural game is, whether it's a social media stream or video, they're actually loading at the highest resolution when you're running on 5G, which means that if you're running at 1 GB a day package or a 2 GB a day package of 5G in a day, it is getting over in 10 minutes, which directly impacts the consumption of OTT platform, because people will run out of their data and they will have to pay more to actually have 5G running on the thing. So how do you see that?
So let me also give you a separate analogy now. We're the cheapest market in the world. There is no more cheaper data than what we pay in this country, okay? And the best part is for you to go to your neighbors or just go across the water to Dubai, and you will realize what you need to pay for usage of data, okay? So I think we're spoiled, okay? Now let's talk about that analogy. See, our technologies, at least, today when you look at video, we format in 7 different formats, because the logic in this is we are serving to tier 2, tier 3 markets as well. If the consumer can afford a 1080 on this device, then he's kidding himself, okay? Because at 480, he's sorted, okay? But if he wants to pay for 1080, we will deliver 1080. We don't have a problem. Okay. So the question is, how does the consumer, today all of our players have auto, or you can choose the bandwidth at which you want to watch. Okay. All of that is present. So the way I look at it is that it's going to start small, there's going to be use cases, let scale get built up, let there be competition, consumer will be the winner, but obviously gaming, as you rightly said, and video will be 2 biggest beneficiaries of this connectivity.
I concur. I think from a pricing standpoint, we are the cheapest market in the world, and everybody knows that. I don't see that being a, hindrance to the growth of OTTs, in the landscape. There's also one other interesting thing that we're seeing on the ground is that the TV network and the cable operators themselves are also making a transition to serving broadband, right? And that transition is going to be another inflection point beyond 5G, right? So data availability, I think, will never be a problem. I think it's about the data availability and the end customer getting the availability of data to him. And I don't think pricing will ever be a hindrance to the growth of the space there.
Fantastic. I'm doing the time check, so if the buzzer is for that, I'm keeping a track. We are still, I have 2-3 minutes to close this one. And I actually got a very good perspective from a 5G and the broadband approach that you talked about of the future growth space. So actually from a closing perspective, I'd love to hear from both of you around, as a future, if is one thing that you want to ask all the OTT players to provide you so that you are able to market better, what will be that? Maybe Sachita, you can go first and then Pooja.
I think for us is, measurement. I think today a lot of questions, the moment, we plan for any media that we are planning, I think today the biggest challenge that the industry face is measurement. We don't have a unified measurement system. So I think if there's something that, that allows us to, measure, what is that incrementality that OTT is adding onto my existing media campaign, I think then we're just sorted as planners. I think, and I think that is true for everything today that we are doing.
Pooja, what about you?
So I guess it's ditto. So like even if we have to, tell our traditional, our bosses and all why OTT, I think TV is very easy for everyone to say yes. I've seen a lot of people who are at a more senior level don't even want to get involved in digital because they all know about television, they understand the pre and the post. So like I was just saying in UK and all, Netflix is, audited along with television, with, Barb. So I think I'm also hopeful that, we will get audited in OTT and then everyone can really believe in it because I think some of the young marketers, and I won't say I'm young, but a lot of the young marketers definitely believe in it. But I think that measurement system is what we really need, which will also help us build the case, going forward. And Google and Facebook, of course, the run continues, So we're hopefully OTT will break that.
You want to add something, Rakesh? It looks like.
I mean, from our perspective, we are being compared to an industry that's matured, and television is an industry that's come over 20 years, right? So cable television, over the last 20 years, we've come to a place where we are now measuring it effectively. And OTT space, in all true sense, has boomed in the last 2 years. I think we'll get to that place, and I think it's far easier for us to get there, considering that we are digital and everything is measurable. I think agreeing with the industry in terms of what are the measurement tools is the first place where we start. And I'm sure that, as we go, I think we'll get to that place as well.
Completely in agreement. You got to give us some time.
No, actually, measurement will be the last one.
I'll just say, so most of us on VOD are using DFP, which already that data goes in. The question is, are you willing to move out from the Web 2 era of per impression to giving us also benefit of time spent, reach and TOM? When all of that starts coming in, that's when the margin spreads will start changing. What ends up happening is most of the media buyers consider us on the back of the Web 1, Web 1.5, where it is all about कितने million impressions आप दोगे, not realizing that is video, and that video traditionally needs to have other value systems that TV gets, which we don't get, and we are transparent.
Yeah, in fact, I just wanted to add to both of your points. I think we over-measure digital compared to TV. TV has much lesser measurement matrix, to be honest.
I agree.
So yeah, it's a reverse, honestly.
And I think the industry has to move beyond impressions, right?
Yeah.
We really have to get beyond it.
Yeah.
We're talking about attention today. Attention. I think as an industry, we've started talking about attention metrics. And once that happens, I think then it's about, what has the highest attention. It could be MX, it could be Netflix, it could be even a Star Plus. I think it'll make life, as and more, we have adoption of the same. I think, and once that starts settling down and people start accepting it, I think it's going to make life much easier and sorted.
Yeah, and the biggest breakout in this is going to be video commerce. Once that comes in, then, I mean, it cannot get more bitter and more transparent than that for both us as the platform owners and for buyers who are buying. Because the entire video commerce layer, which is the basis of the short form video ecosystem, okay, all of that is actually completely interlinked, and that is bound to happen.
See, this is where we are just warming up, looks like, because now we are talking out of turn and trying to finish each other's sentence. So, and the time has run out. So, obviously, with that note, thank you so much for sharing your point of views on this one. And it's amazing the range we covered today of conversations, from a 5G disruption to the super apps to how we use it on our plans to the growth that is coming from languages. It's amazing that we actually shared with everyone. So, thank you so much. On a closing note, I just want to say that there's another very interesting thing. There's a FIFA World Cup coming up. Sports is a very big growth driver of OTT. FIFA World Cup is there. Then there's IPL next year with a new platforms, and it will be very interesting to see how they impact consumer behavior, because it's not just about convenience. There will be a pricing that will come into play, which is, do I subscribe to a TV channel or do I subscribe to the OTT where I get the cost benefit? So it's going to be a very fabulous 2023 in this space. So on that note, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.